The high desert stretched beneath the sinking sun, an endless sea of rust and gold. Sagebrush whipped in the wind, carrying the dry scent of dust and distant rain. Beyond the ridges, a small black cross cut through the sky like a mark on the horizon. Hawke watched it with a stillness that came from years of hard living. The kind of quiet a man learns when loss has hollowed out half his heart. He rode alongside the scouting party, his horse's hooves clicking over the rocky terrain. Strapped to his saddle was a small, beaded doll of his daughter Tessa, a small comfort in the growing dark. She was only 7, but sharp-tongued and observant like a woman much older. The tribe often joked that she had the soul of an ancient grandmother. Tonight, though, no one joked. Tessa was missing. Cole's jaw tightened as he scanned the rugged landscape. The tracks they followed were fresh, too fresh. 3 sets of boot prints heading south toward the broken hills. Scalp hunters, Mexican renegades who had traded buffalo hides for Apache scalps in years past. The worst kind of men. The kind who would use a child for bait if it meant making a profit. Cole could taste the blood in his mouth at the thought. Her tracks falter here, Luke Stroud said, kneeling beside a cluster of rocks. Looks like she stumbled. Cole's heart thudded in his chest. Tessa was quick as a fox, clever enough to hide from a full patrol when she wanted to, but she was still just a child, and the desert showed no mercy. "We move," Cole said, his voice low and commanding. They rode harder, pushing past the boulders and into a narrow draw where the wind howled between the stones. Dusk settled quickly, casting long, violet shadows across the basin. That's when Cole saw it, a small, pale figure near a cluster of juniper trees. He leapt from his horse before the others even called out. But it wasn't Tessa. It was a woman, a white woman in field clothes, dusty from travel, kneeling in the dirt with a child's limp body in her arms. Tessa's black hair spilled over the woman's forearm. The woman held the girl tight, murmuring something Cole couldn't understand. His vision narrowed. He saw only Tessa's still face. "You." Cole's voice cut through the canyon like a knife. "Put the child down." The woman jerked, startled. Her hands tightened protectively around Tessa instead of letting her go. "She's dehydrated," the woman said quickly. "I gave her water. She fainted. Please, she needs help." The Apache warriors closed in. Luke Stroud raised his weapon, but the woman backed up, shielding Tessa with her body. She looked terrified but determined. Cole mistook it for guilt. "You dare touch my daughter." His voice was rough, accented but clear. "You took her from her people." "What?" The woman's eyes widened with disbelief and fear. "I found her collapsed. I was trying—" "Enough," Cole growled. He moved forward, swift as a striking panther. 2 warriors seized the woman by the arms, pulling Tessa gently out of her grasp. The girl's breathing was shallow but steady. A heavy wave of relief washed over Cole, followed by a rising fury. The woman struggled. "Let me go," she cried out. "I didn't take her. I saved her." Her words tangled in the wind, half lost to Cole's anger and the language barrier. She kicked once, but the warriors held fast. One of them tied her wrists with a leather cord while she cried, "Don't do this. You're making a mistake." Cole ignored her. The desert had shown him enough death to harden his judgments. Many white people had used tricks before, tears in their eyes, knives in their hands. "Bring her," Cole ordered coldly. The ride back to camp was lit by the rising moon. The woman Mae Carson, though they did not yet know her name, slumped across a horse wrists bound, dust streaking her cheeks. She called out twice, pleading for them to understand, but no one answered. It wasn't cruelty, it was certainty. In their eyes, she was guilty. When they reached the circle of teepees glowing in the firelight, Cole carried Tessa to the medicine lodge. Doc Reed, the old healer, inspected the girl, nodding slowly. "She'll live," the old man said. Those words loosened something tight and painful inside Cole. But the relief lasted only a moment before the weight of judgment returned. The warriors dragged the prisoner forward. The tribal council gathered, led by Cole's father, Jonah Black, a man of 60 winters with eyes as hard as stone. Mae stood before them, wrists raw, clothes torn from her struggle. She looked around in bewilderment and awe, as though realizing she had stumbled into the heart of the very people she had spent years studying. Jonah Black's voice rumbled like distant thunder. This woman is accused of stealing the heir's child. At sunrise, she will face death. Mae Carson's breath hitched. Death, she whispered. No, please, you don't understand. She struggled to break free, twisting her wrists until the raw hide bindings cut into her skin. I didn't kidnap her, Mae cried out. I found her. 2 warriors shoved her to her knees. Her voice rose in desperation. Listen to me. I didn't hurt that little girl. I helped her. Why won't you listen? Her voice cracked, but the council remained silent. She lunged forward one last time, but they shoved her back down. Her cheek hit the dirt. A sob tore from her chest, fierce and frustrated. Cole Hawke watched his face, a stone mask. He had already made up his mind. By nightfall, Mae was tied to a post at the edge of camp, guarded by 2 warriors. They whispered among themselves about her erratic sobbing, sometimes laughter, sometimes tears. She stared at the stars as though scolding the heavens for the cruel trick life had played on her. This is what I get, she muttered bitterly, trying to be independent, trying to help. Brilliant Mae, she whispered to herself. The desert wind swallowed her words as the fire crackled low, and the long night settled around her like a sentence already carried out. The desert night had grown cold by the time Mae slipped into a restless half-sleep. Her wrists throbbed beneath the rawhide bindings, and her back ached from hours pressed against the pole. Somewhere a coyote howled long and lonely, its cry rolling through the darkness like a warning from another world. She blinked up at the sky, eyes gritty with exhaustion. The stars were so bright, so impossibly wide, they seemed to mock her. Independence, she thought bitterly. Those had been proud words a week ago. Now she sat tied to a post in the middle of an Apache camp, waiting for the dawn to deliver a death sentence she didn't deserve. She drifted off again, only to wake with a choking sob. One of the guards lifted an eyebrow. She's cracked, he muttered in Apache to the other. Mae didn't need to understand the language to read the look. She let out a humorless, breathless laugh. If I'm crazy, then crazy I am, she whispered to herself. It's because none of this makes any sense. But as the sky shifted from black to gray-blue, something inside her changed. Something soft, stubborn, lodged deep in her chest. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was memory. Maybe it was the way the desert felt like a cradle, even when it meant it might bury her. Without thinking, she began to hum. A small thread of melody curled through her cracked lips. The tune came from a place long abandoned. Her childhood bedroom back east, her mother's cool hands brushing through her hair, the smell of lavender water and linen sheets. Then Mae began to sing. The Irish lullaby rose into the dawn, fragile but unwavering, floating above the camp as though carried on invisible wings. The guards stiffened. One sat straighter. Not because they understood the words, but because the sound didn't match the woman they had dragged here in fury. It was too gentle, too full of something the desert rarely offered. Grace. At the medicine lodge on the far side of camp, Tessa stirred beneath her blankets. Her lashes fluttered. The soft foreign music slipped into her dreams like warm sunlight. She sat up sleepy and confused, her heart fluttering like a sparrow's. That song, she whispered. She pushed aside the hide flap and stepped barefoot into the cool morning air. The world was bathed in the pale gold light of the first sunrise. She followed the strange melody as though an invisible thread were pulling her. Near the outskirts of camp, she found Mae slumped and bound, singing with her face turned toward the awakening sky. Why is she tied up? Tessa asked softly. Mae didn't notice the small figure approaching until tiny hands touched her cheeks. She startled, looking down at the child she had nearly died protecting. Hey there, Mae whispered, her voice hoarse. You're awake. Tessa frowned, her voice innocent. Why are they hurting you? You saved me. And before Mae could answer, the sound of pounding footsteps rushed toward them. Cole burst into the clearing, his hair wild from sleep, his face carved with panic. Tessa! He barked, sweeping his daughter into his arms. I told you not to wander. But Tessa struggled, pushing against him. Papa, no! She's not bad. She helped me. Cole froze his grip, loosening just enough for Tessa to look him squarely in the eyes. She gave me water, Tessa insisted. She scared away the bad men. She carried me when I was too tired. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Cole's jaw tightened. He turned slowly toward Mae. She met his eyes, tired, wounded, but unflinching. There was no triumph there, no plea for mercy, just the weary certainty of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Ask your daughter again, Mae rasped. Ask her where I found her. Ask her if I ever once tried to hurt her. So Hawke did. The questioning took time. Tessa described everything with a child's simple honesty. The dark canyon, the bad men shouting, the way her knees scraped when she fell. How Mae Carson had lifted her as if she weighed no more than a handful of feathers. She told them how Mae had cried when she thought Tessa might die. Piece by piece, the truth settled over the clearing like the slow rise of the sun. When Tessa finished, she wrapped her arms tightly around Mae's waist, glaring at the grown men as if daring them to argue. She's good, the girl declared. She saved me. A heavy silence followed. The weight of shifting judgment pressed down on the camp. Jonah Black arrived leaning on his staff. His eyes swept over Mae, her swollen wrists, her dust-covered hair, the child clinging to her, and finally landed on Cole. The accusations are wrong, the old chief said quietly. Cole's throat tightened. His pride twisted inside him like barbed wire. He had been so sure, so unquestioning, and in his certainty he had nearly killed an innocent woman. He stepped toward Mae. We made a mistake, he forced out. You will be released. The guards cut Mae's bindings. She nearly collapsed as feeling rushed back into her hands. Cole instinctively reached out to catch her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me, she snapped. A few warriors winced at the venom in her tone. Cole absorbed it without flinching. He deserved worse. You may go when you wish, he said stiffly. Mae flexed her raw hands, grimacing. After nearly being executed, yes, I imagine I'll want to leave very soon. But before she could take a step, Tessa tugged her sleeve. Please stay, the girl begged. Just for a little while. Mae opened her mouth to refuse, but hesitation slipped in, quiet and unexpected. She had come west searching for history only to stumble straight into the heart of it. And somehow absurdly, a child she'd known for less than a day looked at her as though she were someone worth holding on to. Maybe, Mae thought, just a few days. Cole watched the indecision flicker across her face. His own expression remained unreadable, but something loosened in his shoulders. Something he wasn't yet ready to name. The desert sun lifted higher, casting a soft, forgiving light over them all, as though the land itself had chosen to correct the mistakes of men. Mae stayed at first because Tessa had begged her, and second, because Jonah Black himself had insisted on offering proper hospitality after such a grave misunderstanding. But there was a third reason, quieter and more private, that took root in Mae's chest. She wanted to understand these people beyond the pages of books and sketches she had spent years studying. By mid-morning, Mae was shown to a guest lodge, a simple lean-to made of hides and willow poles. It wasn't much, But the women who guided her were warm in their way. They brought her blankets, water, and a woven basket filled with mesquite cakes. They watched her with the curiosity of people examining something both foreign and unexpectedly interesting. When Mae bowed her head in thanks, they giggled not mockingly, but like they were charmed. Soon they began asking questions in broken English gestures and laughter. Mae did her best to answer, drawing little pictures in the dust to help them understand. One woman touched her hair with awe. Another admired the embroidery on her dusty blouse. It wasn't long before Mae was teaching them things. "Here," she said, gathering a few smooth pebbles and pine needles. "You can make a kind of perfume if you warm these with animal fat." She showed them how women back east softened their hands and braided their hair. To her surprise, the Apache women leaned in, closer, eager students. A grandmother with silver-threaded braids sniffed the mixture and gave a pleased nod. A young mother tried the hair braiding trick and gasped when the style held firm. The circle around Mae grew, as did the laughter. Across the camp, Cole noticed the women clustered together, chattering like songbirds. The white woman in their midst moved her hands quickly, her face bright with animation. He frowned, watching her lean over a girl's shoulder to adjust a braid. He had expected her to cling to the guest lodge, brooding over her near execution. Yet there she was, surrounded by half the village, teaching them how to rub scented oil on their fingertips. The unexpectedness of it unsettled him. A foreign woman should have been frightened, resentful, or at least cautious. But Mae Carson had dove straight in. He turned away before she could notice him watching. Later that afternoon, Mae found herself helping a pair of warriors repair a torn sleeve, not out of obligation, but because one of them had thrust the garment into her hands with a hopeful grin. She knelt in the shade, stitching carefully. Soon the men around her began joking in broken English. And once Mae Carson caught enough of their words to guess their meaning, she joined in. That's when she made her mistake. One of the younger warriors, Talon Ridge, muttered something about the heir's stone face. Mae perked up. "Oh, you mean Cole Hawke?" she asked. Several men exchanged looks, both of delight and danger. Mae rose to her feet, squared her shoulders, and dropped her voice an octave. Her impersonation was devastating. "I am Cole Hawke," she declared, crossing her arms, jaw set like granite. "I speak 5 words a day. If you want more than that, consult the spirits." The warriors howled with laughter. Mae continued, warming to the performance. She stalked in a stiff line, mimicking his rigid stride. She narrowed her eyes into that piercing, unreadable stare of his. She even perfected the sharp exhale he used to express disapproval, without saying a word. The men were doubled over. One slapped his knee, another collapsed backward into the dust, helpless with mirth. Encouraged, Mae pressed on. "And remember," she intoned in her best Cole Hawke impression, "I do not smile ever. If you see my lips move, it is only to deliver judgment." More laughter erupted. A passing group of women stopped, listened, and began giggling too. Mae grinned, triumphant, until she noticed the sudden silence. The warriors stopped laughing one by one. The women scattered. Even Talon Ridge suddenly found his moccasins very interesting. Mae didn't have to turn around. She felt the weight of the presence behind her like a cold draft. But she turned anyway. Cole stood there, arms crossed, dark brows raised just enough to signal that, yes indeed, he had heard every blessed word. For a suspended moment no one breathed. Mae cleared her throat. "Ah well, that was purely academic." Talon Ridge mouthed silently. "Run." Mae took his advice. Her skirt swirled as she bolted between the lodges. Warriors jumped aside to let her pass. Children stared. A dog barked in confusion. And somewhere behind her a sound rose low at first. Impossible. Disbelieving. Laughter. Cole Hawke was laughing. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Warm, rough, too long buried. The kind of laugh a man forgets how to make after grief has lived in his bones for years. Those who heard it froze mid-step. Some whispered. Others simply stared, stunned. When Mae dared peek over a stack of firewood, she saw him still standing there, head slightly, bowed shoulders, shaking once with lingering amusement. He had never looked so human. Lord help me, Mae thought, pressing a hand over her mouth. Now I've really done it. Words spread like wildfire. By sundown, half the tribe was murmuring about the white woman who made the air laugh. A few teased Cole directly. He ignored them with practiced stoicism, but couldn't quite smother the ghost of a smile. Jonah Black, however, was not amused. He summoned Cole to his fire that night. The old man's face glowed red in the flames, deep lines carved with disappointment. "The people talk," Jonah Black said. "They say your heart leans toward the woman." "It does not," Cole replied too quickly. His father's eyes narrowed. "You forget yourself. A leader's heart belongs first to his people. Do not let a stranger loosen your judgment." Cole didn't answer, mostly because he wasn't sure if his father was wrong. Later alone, Cole watched Tessa slip into Mae's lodge to say goodnight. He saw the way Mae bent down to hug the child gently, careful of her still tender injuries. He told himself it meant nothing, but his chest felt tight. Across the camp, Mae couldn't sleep, not because she feared reprisal, but because she could still hear that laugh Cole, startled and full of life, the desert had nearly stolen from him. She lay awake under the vast star-speckled sky, wondering why the memory of it made her heart feel both frightened and strangely warm. The days that followed moved with the quiet rhythm of desert life, slow in appearance. Though beneath the surface, something in the camp began to shift. Mae felt it first. Women sought her out with questions about sewing, about hair braiding, about all the white lady tricks Mae Carson had demonstrated with berries and pine resin. Children followed her like little quail, eager for stories of faraway cities with tall buildings and streets made of white man's stone. A few warriors had even grown fond enough of her to tease her, though it was always polite, as if they were still unsure whether she was a guest or a storm that had blown in and refused to leave. But Hawke kept his distance. When she passed him, he greeted her with a curt nod, nothing more. The look in his eyes remained careful, reserved, like a man stepping on thin ice. Mae told herself she was glad. After all, she wasn't here to make friends, and certainly not to complicate her life with a brooding widower with shoulders like carved oak and a stubborn streak as wide as the real Grand Canyon. Yet every time she saw him tighten Tessa's braids or lift his daughter into the saddle with gentle hands, something tugged at her. One afternoon, Mae walked to the river with a tin cup, hoping to collect some water. She didn't see Cole until he stepped from behind a cottonwood tree leading his horse. They both paused. "Good afternoon," Mae said, trying to sound casual. Cole inclined his head. "You should not walk alone," he said. "Wolves hunt early this season." Mae raised a brow. "Wolves are irritated heirs who catch me mocking them in public." His lips twitched just barely, but the almost smile sent a peculiar flutter through Mae's stomach. "Both," he replied. For a moment, they simply stood there, the river murmuring between them. The wind carried the sharp scent of juniper. Something unspoken pressed the air tighter, something neither of them was ready to touch. Cole broke the silence first. "My father has spoken," he said quietly, his eyes on the water. "He believes your presence confuses the people." "Confuses how?" Mae asked. He hesitated, a rare thing for him. "They talked," Cole said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "About me, about you." Mae felt her throat tighten. "And you don't like that?" she asked, her voice softer. He didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted over the riverbanks, heavy with thought. "At first," he said, "I thought you were trouble, A woman who fell into our lives with questions and noise, with no sense of danger. Mae snorted. Well, you weren't exactly sunshine either. That earned her the ghost of a smile. But then, he continued, I saw the children gather near you. Saw Tessa laugh in ways she hasn't since her mother died. Mae's chest softened. She looked away, not wanting him to see it. You've brought life back into this camp, Cole murmured, and life always stirs rumors. So that was it. His father feared weakness. The tribe feared change. Cole feared she didn't know what he feared, but she had begun to see it in his eyes, whenever he looked at her for too long. Do you want me to go? Mae asked gently. His voice came rough, scraped from somewhere deep. No. The word hung between them, raw, honest, too exposed. But Cole straightened, quickly, pulling himself back behind the wall of Apache stoicism. It's complicated, he said. You know nothing of our ways, and I... He cut off. Mae sensed what he hadn't said, and I don't know how to open the door that has been shut since my wife died. She stepped toward him, just one step. Cole, she said softly, I'm not trying to take anything from you or from your people. He looked at her, then really looked. For the first time she saw not the warrior, not the man of stoic air, but a man caught between respect for tradition and the faint, dangerous hope of something beyond survival. Something like companionship, something like warmth. That evening the whole tribe gathered around the central fire to tell stories. Smoke spiraled into the cooling air, carrying the scent of sage and pine. Elders recited tales of old raids and victories. Children leaned against their mothers' eyes half closed. Mae sat beside Tessa, who tugged at her sleeve every few seconds to whisper translations. Then an elder spoke of Cole's wife, a woman whose laughter once lit every corner of the camp, and how she had died, bringing Tessa into the world. How Cole had not smiled since. Mae's breath caught. She looked at Cole across the fire. His face remained stone, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. Tessa looked between them with the uncanny wisdom of a child, far beyond her years. You make him smile, she whispered. Mae's cheeks warmed. Tessa, sweetheart, she said, he just finds me ridiculous. No. The girl shook her head with certainty. Papa was dead inside. You woke him up. The word struck Mae like a stone in the chest. She swallowed hard and looked away, only to meet Cole's eyes watching her across the flames. It wasn't a romantic look. It wasn't longing. It was something deeper. Something wary, grateful, afraid and curious, all at once. Mae Carson had never been looked at that way before. Later, as the fire burned low, Jonah Black approached Cole Hawke with a grim expression. You grow soft, the old chief murmured. The people talk because they fear your heart may wander where it should not. Cole's spine stiffened. My heart is my own. No, Jonah Black said sharply. Your heart belongs to your tribe, to your bloodline, to the spirits of your ancestors. Cole said nothing. Do not forget your duty, the chief warned before turning away. Duty. The word felt like a stone tethered to Cole's ribs. He watched Mae laugh quietly with Tessa across the dying fire. The child leaned against her as naturally as if she belonged there. Mae lifted a strand of the girl's hair, brushing it away with tenderness. And Cole felt the ache of wanting something forbidden. Not the wild, reckless desire of youth, but the quiet wish for a home no longer empty. That night Mae lay in her lodge, listening to the whisper of the wind against the hides. She should have felt out of place. She should have felt afraid. Instead she felt anchored. Cole's restraint. Cole's grief. Cole's unexpected gentleness. These thoughts spun through her mind until exhaustion pulled her into sleep. Outside, Cole stood alone, gazing at the stars with a heaviness he hadn't known in years. His father's warning rang in his ears, but so did Mae's voice, and Tessa's laughter, Duty and heart. The two had always been separate things, until now. The desert grew restless in the days that followed, as though the earth itself sensed a storm brewing beyond the horizon. Birds flew lower. Coyotes called earlier. Even the air tasted sharper, carrying the metallic tang of something unsaid and unspoken. Mae felt it first, though she couldn't explain how. Each morning she found the women quieter, the warriors more watchful. Tessa stayed close to her side, unusually clingy fingers curling into Mae's sleeve whenever footsteps passed too near. Cole walked the camp like a man waiting for a shadow to take shape. Something was coming. No one knew what, but they felt it. The danger arrived at dusk. A scout galloped into camp, hoarse and trembling. "They're coming," he gasped in Apache. 10, maybe more. Whites and Mexicans armed. The scalp hunters, and with them, soldiers from Fort Bayfield. Mae's breath hitched. Her past had come looking for her. Within moments, the camp transformed from a relaxed dusk into organized readiness. Warriors strung their bows, checked their rifles, tied back their hair. Women ushered children toward the safety lodges. Fires were tamped down to low embers. Cole strode toward the center of camp. His presence drew a ripple of focus through the growing tension. When he saw Mae, he stopped. "You know these men?" he asked. "The soldiers, yes," she admitted. "The scalp hunters. I fear I do. They've been trailing archaeological digs for months, stealing artifacts and selling them. I think they followed me west, hoping I'd lead them to sacred ground." Cole's eyes sharpened. "Then they come for you. And maybe for your people." Mae added, her voice steady despite the tightness in her chest. "They don't care who gets hurt." For a long moment Cole said nothing. The wind tugged at his hair. Firelight flickered across the hard line of his jaw. Then he spoke. "You stay behind me." "I'm not a child," Mae snapped automatically. "No," he agreed quietly. "You are braver than any I've seen. But brave does not mean bulletproof." The words stunned Mae into silence. By the time the riders thundered into view, the moon had risen wide and pale above the desert, casting long shadows across the plain. The scalp hunters rode in front, soldiers behind them. Dust spiraled from their hooves like smoke. They halted about 100 yards from the Apache barricade. A gruff-looking sergeant cupped his hands around his mouth. "We're looking for a woman," he shouted. "White mid-20s, brown hair, answers to Mae Carson. We have reason to believe she's being held." Mae stiffened. Cole stepped forward. "She is under our protection." "A prisoner," the sergeant barked. "A guest." Cole corrected, his form rigid as the mountains behind him. One of the scalp hunters spurred ahead, and Mae recognized him instantly. A man named Rex Malone, whose greed for relics had already left several dig sites plundered. And then he sneered at her. "We'll overlook this whole Apache hideout you've built for yourselves." Cole's warriors bristled, hands resting on their bowstrings. Mae Carson stepped forward before Cole could stop her. "Sergeant," she called, her voice carrying across the open distance. "I am not kidnapped. I am not being held. I came here willingly. The Apache have done nothing but protect me." Rex Malone spat into the dust. "Protect? They'll slit your throat once they're done using you." "That's enough," the sergeant snapped, but his hand hovered near his holster. Mae swallowed hard. These men weren't here to rescue her. They were here because they feared scandal, or because Rex had spun lies about Apache savages holding a white woman hostage. Mae had to control this or blood would spill. Drawing a slow breath, she lifted both hands, presenting herself openly. "I am Mae Carson," she declared. "I am alive. I am safe, and I am not returning with you." Murmurs rippled through the soldiers. Rex sneered. "Lady, don't try that independent streak on us. You come back now or we'll take you." Cole moved so fast, Mae barely saw him. In one breath, he was at her side, his body angled protectively, his voice a low rumble like thunder. "You will not take her." Something inside Mae trembled not with fear, but with an emotion she didn't dare name. The standoff stretched tight as a bowstring. Then, sensing the Apache were too many and too prepared, the sergeant cursed, spat, and motioned for his men to turn back. Rex lingered a moment longer, glaring at Mae with venomous promise. "The saint's done," he hissed. But it was done for now. The riders vanished into the darkness, swallowed by dust and moonlight. Back in camp, the air slowly relaxed. Warriors clasped arms. Women soothed frightened children. But Mae remained still, pulse thudding, the echo of danger still trapped in her bones. Cole approached her quietly. "You did well," he said. Mae let out a shaky laugh. "I almost got myself shot. I would not have allowed that." The surety in his voice made her breath catch. When he bounded to Mae's side, his eyes shining, he added, "You were brave. You spoke like a chief." Mae knelt and hugged Tessa, feeling a tide of protection sweep through her. "I was scared, little bird," she whispered, "but you stood anyway. That's what matters." When Mae rose, Cole was still watching her, not with suspicion, not with duty. Something warmer, something more dangerous. She felt heat rise in her cheeks and looked away. But her heart did not look away. That night the camp gathered to thank the spirits for preserving peace. Mae helped clean the lodge bandage a warrior's scraped arm and carry water to tired mothers. Every gesture she made was met with gratitude and respect. For the first time since she'd arrived, she felt not like a visitor, but like someone who truly belonged. When she finally stepped outside, she found Cole waiting for her beneath a cottonwood tree, moonlight silvering the edges of his hair. "You risked yourself for us," he said softly. "You risked yourself for me," she replied. Their eyes met, held. The night hummed with crickets, with wind, with something rising between them that felt older than language. Cole looked away, first breath uneven. "This changes things," he admitted. "Yes." Mae whispered, her voice catching slightly. "It does." But neither of them said how. Not yet. Not with so many eyes watching, so much tradition weighing on their shoulders. Still, as they walked back toward the dying firelight, close enough that their hands brushed once, accidentally, impossibly warm, both knew the storm outside had passed. But a far more dangerous one had begun inside their hearts. The days that followed passed like a long exhale held after a tight-held breath. No riders approached the camp. No threats rose from the horizon. The desert returned to its usual rhythm, whispering along the canyon walls as if nothing had happened at all. But inside the tribe, everything had changed. Word spread quickly. The white woman had stood for the Apache, and the air had stood for her. Children who once watched her shyly now raced to her side, bringing stories and treasures, painted human figures, feathers, bone beads. Tessa clung to her almost constantly, her laughter ringing brighter each day. Even the warriors who once regarded Mae with suspicion began greeting her with nods of genuine respect. Only Jonah Black remained wary, his eyes shadowed with caution whenever Cole and Mae crossed paths. One crisp morning, as Mae stepped out of her lodge, she felt a tug on her skirt. "Auntie Mae," Tessa said breathlessly with excitement. "Come quick, I want to show you something." Mae Carson blinked. "Auntie?" Tessa grinned. "Some people get titles when the tribe likes them. You earned yours." Warmth bloomed unexpectedly in Mae's chest. The girl led her to a ridge overlooking the valley. The wind tousled Tessa's braids as she pointed proudly. "See that rock? Papa says it's where he saw Mama for the first time." Mae's breath caught at the intimacy of the statement. "I was sitting on that very rock sewing a doll for me." Tessa's voice softened. "When I miss her, I come here." Mae knelt, her eyes fluttering as she brushed a strand of hair from Tessa's face. "Your mother must have been very special," Mae said. "She was—" Tessa whispered. Her eyes lifted. But you make the lonely places less lonely. The words struck Mae with a tenderness that almost broke her. She wrapped her arms around the girl, holding her a little longer than usual. Behind them, footsteps approached, soft but unmistakably steady. Cole. He stood a few paces away, hands behind his back, watching the two of them with a strange mixture of awe and uncertainty. It was as if seeing Mae with his daughter made something inside him tremble. Something long buried, now pushing toward the light. When Tessa hopped off the rock and ran ahead, Cole remained. "You're important to her," he said. Mae held his gaze. "She's important to me." The wind brushed between them, cool and fragrant with sage. "You saved her life," Cole murmured. "But more than that, she smiles again. She sleeps soundly again. I wasn't sure I'd ever see those things." Mae's heart tightened. "Grief changes people. Doesn't mean you failed her." Cole's eyes darkened. "I failed my wife. I wasn't there the night she died." Mae stepped closer. "Cole, she died giving life. That's not failure." His breath hitched a quiet, unsteady sound. Then he turned away, as if the weight of the moment was too much. But Mae saw it the way his shoulders loosened, as if her words had pressed a healing balm into an old scar. That evening, while the women prepared supper, Mae helped a few with grinding maize. The conversation drifted to harmless gossip at first, who had tanned the best hides this season, which warriors snored loud enough to shake teepee poles, until the subject shifted suddenly. "So," one woman asked slyly, "the heir visits you often now?" Mae nearly dropped the grinding stone. "Visits? No, he doesn't. He just appears sometimes." Another woman giggled. "A man does not appear unless he wishes to be seen." Mae felt her face flush. "You're imagining things." "No," the older grandmother said wisely. "Your hearts speak, but both of you pretend not to hear." Mae fled the grinding circle before the teasing grew unbearable. She didn't realize Cole had been walking past until she collided nearly chest first into him. He steadied her with warm, strong hands. "You run as if pursued," he said, eyes amused. Mae groaned. "Your entire tribe thinks we're—" She stopped, hesitating. Cole's voice wasn't teasing. It wasn't mocking. It was gentle. A quiet admission wrapped in a question. "Are we something?" he asked softly. Before Mae could answer, a commotion rose at the far edge of camp. A young boy stumbled in, carrying his trembling sister, a girl no older than 10. Fever rolled off her in waves. Mae rushed forward instinctively, checking the girl's forehead, examining her pulse. "Heat sickness," she murmured, "and dehydration." Cole knelt down beside her. "Can you treat her?" "I need herbs, juniper willow bark, crushed yucca, root towels for cooling water that's been boiled." Cole rose immediately. "You will have them." What followed became the longest night the tribe had seen in months. Mae worked beside Doc Reed, blending traditional remedies with simple frontier medicine. The girl writhed, then shivered, then fought for breath. Mae held her through each wave, whispering, gently cooling her cheeks, refusing to leave her side. By dawn, the fever finally broke. When the girl opened her eyes, Mae sagged forward in relief. Cole, who had remained outside the lodge the entire night, watching the shadows move beneath the firelight, stepped inside. "You saved her," he said softly. Mae shook her head. "No, her strength saved her. I just nudged things along." But Cole saw the exhaustion in her face, the tremble in her fingers, the faint stain of dried tears on her cheeks. "You care," he whispered. "Yes," Mae Carson said. "I do." Cole Hawke stepped closer, close enough that Mae could feel the warmth of him. The quiet gravity between them, something deep and aching, flickered in his eyes. "You frightened me," he admitted. Mae blinked. "I frighten you. You make me want things I told myself were gone forever." Her breath caught. The confession hung between them, fragile, powerful, sacred. Before Mae could speak, Tessa burst in, throwing her arms around Mae's waist and whispering, "I knew you would save her too. You save everyone." Mae pressed a kiss to the girl's hair, her heart swelling. Cole watched them, a softness overtaking his features. The fear remained, but so did something stronger. Weeks passed. The tribe healed. The desert settled, and the bond between Cole, Mae, and Tessa wove itself tighter, quietly, steadily, as natural as the passing seasons. One evening, they stood together on the ridge as the sun dipped low, bathing the land in molten gold. Tessa held Mae's hand. Cole stood on her other side, not touching yet, closer than he had ever allowed before. "Maybe I should continue my research here," Mae said softly, "just for one more season." Cole turned to her. His voice was steady, though something tender rippled beneath it. "Stay as long as your heart wishes." Mae smiled, feeling the truth settle warm inside her chest. For the first time in years, the road ahead didn't feel lonely. It felt like a path she wasn't meant to walk alone. Tessa squeezed her fingers. "See, Auntie Mae, the desert is big, but no one has to walk it alone." Cole met Mae's eyes, and this time neither of them looked away. "Stay as long as your heart wishes."